I'm going to use this. Can you hear me? Yes? I'm going to use this microphone. I promise I will not sing, but I'm told I have to hold it up close so you can hear me. I will probably walk around a little bit as I speak. I wanted to say thank you very, very much, and welcome to the Congress. I know you've been welcomed by your colleagues, your esteemed colleagues, your new president. Congratulations. Old president. Old, they're all good. And I want to say thank you to all of you for your chosen profession, to focus on families, the well-being of children and families. I admire and appreciate the work that you do and would love to hear stories from all of you. I want to thank your dean for his foresight and wisdom that I've heard from the students about what he emphasizes and what he has chosen to focus on in a curriculum here. And I want to thank Katja and her team, her dream team of organizers. They have been gracious and expert with me personally, and I know that you are in good hands. And thank you very much for making the time to be here. I know in our overfilled lives that traveling and being at congresses takes an extra special amount of energy. So thank you for that and congratulations. I have learned a little bit about Slovenia in my little more than 24 hours of being here. It is ever so much better than what I could learn reading in a guidebook or on the internet. And one of the things that has really impressed me is the policy you have for mothers to have 1 year of time at home with their newborn and for fathers to have a month. And then for you to have universal kindergarten. I mean, that is brilliant. It is wise, it is brilliant. It shows an important respect for families, children, and the values of your country. So I say congratulations, and we in the United States have much to learn from you. I've also learned, actually, over the last month about one of your stars. You have strength, you have courage, you have the ability to commit and work hard, which he showed the world. So our objective today is to introduce you to hand-in-hand parenting and to learn some listening tools. You will learn one of the listening tools or two of the listening tools now, and then there will be many more in the workshop later. These are designed to improve relationships between adults and our relationships with children. Now, the most important thing for all of us is to be knowing each other. You're beginning a Congress, so I'd like you to turn to someone, hopefully that you don't know, that's nearby, and just for a minute each way, I'll let you know when to switch if you haven't, your name, where you're home, or your hometown, and something important to you about your family. If you're a parent, how old are your children? And just as something you'd like to learn from me, hopefully today or somewhere else during the Congress. So turn to someone, you just have a minute or so, and have a minute to talk and listen. Find someone you don't know, right nearby. she did as a speaker was give the audience to each other and then expect them to come back and pay attention to her. So I just showed a little courage. So, a story about me as a young physician. I was new in practice, in an office practice, which I did for 25 years. I saw a child walking down the hall toward the exam room. I walked into the exam room, picked up the chart, knocked on the door, looked at the chart, and saw that she had seen her mother stabbed to death in her living room. She was sitting on the exam table in front of me. It caught my breath. I said to her, "I am so sorry about what happened to your mother. It should never have happened, and you should never have seen it." She looked up at me with big eyes. Tears welled up, and they came down her cheek. She just started to cry. I didn't know exactly what to do, except that I had learned some of the tools I'm going to speak about, and I decided to just stay and listen. I stood next to her. I came a little closer gradually. She leaned on me, and she cried. All I said was, "I'm very sorry. This should never have happened. It's okay to cry." She kept crying. I got her grandmother to stand up next to her, and I kept the grandmother from patting her. I had her put her hand on, but no patting. Nothing that would make her stop crying. I told her it was okay and very important to cry, and I would be back. I had more patients coming. I went, saw another patient, came back and checked. She was still crying. Saw another patient, came back and checked. She was still crying. I came back. She was not crying anymore. She looked a little bit more relaxed. And I completed my exam as a doctor. Why was she not eating? I thought I knew, but I needed to be sure. And I let the grandmother know I didn't see anything wrong physically, but I encouraged her to listen more at home. Expect her to show upset about things that she doesn't usually get upset about. And remember, she's crying about her mother. She has a lot to cry about. This was frightening and sad. 2 weeks later, I saw her coming back down the hallway to an exam room, and she looked like the other little girl in the picture. She was walking like little girls walk. She was eating fine. I went in. Nothing seemed wrong. I asked the grandmother, "What did you do? What happened?" She said, "We did what you asked us to do." And I, a new pediatrician, was very surprised, pleased, but very surprised. And I realized the importance of what I had done and what I had said to the grandmother. I encouraged her to keep doing it. It wouldn't be over. But that little girl actually was another of my partner's patients. Those are the only 2 times I ever saw her. But I saw a transformation in 2 weeks that was profound. What I had learned about during my medical training, and even actually before my medical training, were the precepts, the ideas of hand-in-hand parenting, which is a nonprofit organization based in California that provides support to parents. It teaches something called Parenting by Connection, and the website is here. That is the website address, and this is the website picture. As you can see, many of the people that we serve and connect with are outside of California, and in fact outside the United States. Our goal is to support parents and to give them tools that they can use in order to better be connected to themselves and to their children. We provide classes online as well as in person by certified instructors, and we also provide individual support on the telephone and on Skype. The results that we have seen is that children and parents thrive. I'm in the process of publishing an article. I wish I could give you a bibliography about this, but it's in the process of being written. So these are the core fundamental ideas that I just want to review. Number one is connection. Connected parenting directly and powerfully reduces hurt and harm in the lives of individuals, families, and communities. You all know this all too well. Parenting is not easy. How many of us are parents? Let's see. Oh, gracious goodness. Thank you so much, and congratulations. There's no more important work in all the world than parenting. And how many of us have felt this stressed or more being parents? Oh, come on. Really? There, that's better, that's better. Feeling isolated and stressed leads to parents' behavior flaring. It leads to us feeling harsh, wanting to yell, feeling impatient and critical of our children. That is when parents' behavior flares, we are not kind. And the truth is that access to a supportive listener can make all the difference in the world for us. Another core idea is that feeling disconnected or stressed also causes children's behavior to flare, to go off track. That's when children misbehave. When they misbehave, they need connection. Parents can reconnect by listening and offering respect. So listening, both parent to parent and parent to child, builds connection. That listening conveys respect and creates a safety so that we can dissolve the hurts, the emotional tensions which disrupt our caring relationships. This is just a summary of what our core ideas are. The key of respect and listening, strengthening parents' relationships with them, each other, and with children. We can then heal when stress is interfered. This is a model I'm sure you all are very familiar with. And what I want to do is focus our attention on the photographs in this model. The photographs show us the most successful parenting model that we know over the long term results in good outcomes for children. The bottom right, the controlling parents that are big on control and low on warmth. They're not kind, they're harsh, they use punishment, and are impatient and tell children what to do and how to do it and when to do it. May have good immediate outcomes, may get the child to be scared and do what they're supposed to do right now. But over that child's lifetime, we know, research has shown us, that that is not a healthy outcome. The healthiest outcome is the one with moderate limits. Children need limits. They must have limits. They want limits, but not harsh, controlling ones. They need moderate limits and they need a lot of warmth. The bottom photo is of a mother providing a limit for a child and then listening to him. The top one is a mother providing a lot of warmth. So this close parent-child connection throughout childhood is protective. You know that. You've experienced that. And this is what Parenting by Connection focuses on. We focus on that connection and reasonable expectations and limits for children. This warmth and connection from the newborn period on is crucial. Our brain is wired to be fed by these connections, literally wired to be fed by these connections. We know the importance of communicating directly to our newborn, to be able to look at that newborn eye to eye, face to face, and to say, good morning, Katrina. I'm glad you're here, I love you. And then wait for her response. This is a reciprocal relationship. She listens and then she speaks. And I need to listen for her response. I take a moment and then I can respond and say, I'm so glad you're here. I like knowing you. You are my beloved daughter. And let her respond. This is an important part of an infant's relationship, that reciprocal back and forth with a parent. This is what builds children's brains. We have 700 synapses, 700 nerve-to-nerve connections being built every second in a newborn's brain. That goes on for 2 years. That's why I say your government policy of a year for a mother to be home with a child is brilliant. And that mother needs resource. She can't do that alone. She and a father can't do that alone. And we see so many children who have difficulty with this, with what their prefrontal cortex is supposed to be doing. That connection is building what's going on in our prefrontal cortex. Being able to have judgment, attention, control impulses. We see children labeled with ADD, ADHD. I hope you don't have as many as we have in our country being labeled with these. But it's a problem, and we somehow blame the child for this behavior. And I'm not about to blame their parents either. The parents are doing the very, very, very best they can do, given the information and the resources they have. There's no bad parents. Parents need resource and information. But if children don't get these connections and don't get to heal, they don't develop a prefrontal cortex that works very well. I, as a pediatrician, over the course of my career, these labels came into being. When I started, they weren't there. But I was faced with the development of these labels and the development of a pharmaceutical industry that said I needed to give children a pill. I decided I needed to learn. I needed to read the research, the scientific research about the drugs that didn't make it into the medical world. It was about basic science research. And I read the medical research as well. And I knew this information about hand-in-hand parenting. I made a decision that I was not going to be able to write prescriptions for those drugs. That was a personal decision. I worked very hard to get grant funding, to provide therapists, counseling, play therapy, to get resources for parents and families and children. I worked with the schools in order that schools could adapt and provide situations that were healthy for children. And I had one family in 25 years who decided they didn't want to do any of that. They just wanted a pill. And I said, that's fine. There are plenty of doctors. My 4 partners in my group were happy to prescribe the pill. And that was okay. I certainly made that referral. Many pediatricians in the United States are very concerned about the number of drugs that we are prescribing. They're aware that this is a big change in our practice. And they got especially concerned when it became clear that the initial research that showed that the drugs like Ritalin worked, that research that seemed to be very honestly done by a pediatrician at Harvard was in fact funded aggressively by a pharmaceutical industry company, but we didn't know it. That didn't come out for 10 years, that physician actually made millions of dollars doing that research and publishing it. So I think we have a lot to learn, and your work is vital, vital, vital to being able to get the resource to children and families that they need. So when the connection is broken with children, it does feel an emergency to them. And I think we often tend to blame them rather than being self-reflective. That picture up there in the upper right, the woman in the red sweater, well, she was me. I had 3 sons, 2 boys that were adopted and 1 that was a foster son. And I still remember when my oldest son, when he would be particularly annoyed with me, trying to get him to do what I needed him to do, he would look at me and go, la, 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 with his fingers in both of his ears. And at first, of course, I was angry, and then I would have to realize, oh my, no, who's the problem here? Is he the problem, or am I the problem? And I had to, when my mind was clear enough, acknowledge I was the problem, not him. It was time for me to do something about me so that I could communicate better with him. I needed someone to listen to me for a moment so that I could heal from some confusions I had, so that I could be a little bit more relaxed, a little more personal, and see to it that we did what we needed to do. So this listening and being listened to helps parents connect, and it really does grow our ability to enjoy our children and to connect with them. So feelings confuse us. I mean, we've all had this experience of just feeling overwhelmed, exhausted. There's too much to do. We feel way too sad. It may have been a moment in time when we got some very, very bad news, or maybe just a hard, stressful day at work. But we've all had that experience, right, of just so many feelings, it just feels like we can't think. Show our hands. I've had them. I've had thousands of them. Yes, 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 good. I'm not alone. Thank you, thank you. And I will say one in particular that stands out very big in my mind is, and ties into a little bit to my work. My son, my youngest son, when he was 8, was in hospital had some throwing up, pain in his neck, and one of his arms was a little weak. Didn't seem that big a deal. Well, it turns out he had a very, very serious malformation in his spinal cord. When the neurosurgeon came to talk to us, he sat down and he just said, oh, your son has something horrible, and we can't fix it. You need to go 4 hours away. Somebody there might be able to do it. He got up and he walked out. That was it. Well, how did I feel? Completely overwhelmed, completely alone, terrified, and grief-stricken. I couldn't think my way out of a paper bag at that moment. I couldn't do anything. Later in the day, thankfully, one of my colleagues, who's a neurologist, came with me to go look at the scan to determine, what did he think. He looked at the scan. I was standing behind him. He turned around with tears in his eyes, held his arms open, held me, and said, no, this is a spinal cord AVM. I'm terribly, terribly sorry. I will stay with you, and we will figure out what to do. I cried. He cried a little, but he actually stayed with me. He connected with me as a human being. So in these moments of feeling overwhelmed and our brains not working, what does work is to connect, is to be human with each other. And I did think very, very well. We made excellent plans. My son is now, I don't know how old he is, he's 28, something like that. He's old. He didn't die of this thing. I mean, he could, I suppose, but it's less and less likely, and he's a law student. He's going to be a lawyer. Isn't that too bad? I failed somewhere. But anyway, he's a good guy. So we have a solution to try. We're dealing with these cluttered minds of lots and lots of feelings, and for parents who are trying to do more than they can do under stressful circumstances. We have a solution, and that is listening partnerships. And in this situation, adults agree to take turns listening to each other. It's not a conversation. Our lives are full of conversations, which are wonderful. This listening partnership is different. Our listening time is different. And we will point out some of those differences, but I want that in your mind. So, we human beings come with a natural healing system, natural ways of healing. And one is laughter, one is crying, one is shaking when we feel afraid. We yawn to heal physical tension. And children have tantrums. Children have tantrums. They sweat, they perspire, they cry, they struggle. Tantrums are a beautiful way of healing emotional tension. It's hard for us to remember, I think, that crying is actually a good thing. But I will take you to the delivery room, where I spent a lot of time as a pediatrician. I didn't deliver the baby, but I was the one there to catch the baby and deal with any problems that happened. How many of us have been in the delivery room? Come on, how many? Parents? You moms, I bet you were there. Thank you very much. I hope you were there. The delivery room is quite a place. And what is the sound in the delivery room that we are most wanting to hear? Crying. Oh my goodness. And what does that crying mean to us? What do we think when we hear that baby cry? Everything's okay. What else? He's alive. Exactly. We really aren't worried about the rest of the details. Our baby is okay. Our baby is alive. Whether it's a boy or a girl, who cares? It's alive. He's alive. She's alive. That's important later. And then something happens, right? Something happens between the delivery room and the nursery, or certainly by the time we get home, right? Yeah, exactly. Shaking your head. So my friend Lynn said this. In the delivery room, we say, "What's the matter? My baby's not crying." And only hours later we say, "What's the matter? My baby's crying." Something happens, that somehow there's something wrong that we need to fix, or I've done something wrong. I'm a mother, and when my baby is crying, I've done something wrong. I feel bad. I want my baby to be happy and look happy. I blame Johnson & Johnson baby products people in the United States for portraying smiling babies everywhere. They don't smile all the time. They don't even smile at all for several months. That disappoints a lot of parents. So crying, if we can remember that crying is a part of healing, we might not want to be so quick to stop it. My family taught me, if you stop the crying, you stop the hurt, right? If the baby stops crying, now the baby's not hurting anymore. Well, with my little girl, who saw her mama stabbed to death in her living room, her mom was dead. That event was over. Nothing was going to stop that event. It had happened. The crying was healing the hurt that had already happened. Our goal is to think and act flexibly and intelligently. That's what we want. We want that for ourselves and for our children. The Listening Partnership gets this healing process restarted for us as adults. The foundation of this partnership is that we are all good, intelligent, powerful, loving, lovable human beings. We all want what's best for ourselves, each other, and our children. And we're doing the best we can, given the information and resources that we have. We just need to do a little healing so that we can remember this. We don't need criticism or advice. Has that helped any of us? I got so much criticism in my medical training. Oh my heaven. If that had actually worked, I would be a giant of research and accomplishment today. It didn't work. It's not useful. And I'm also aware of where the places that we criticize and we judge sort of sneak out like toxic waste. I don't want it to show, but when I have a family that really bothers me, that annoys me, and I don't do listening time about that, those feelings sneak out in body language, in how much time I spend, in my tone of voice. The judgment does slip out. So, here's how we do it. We take equal time. It's two people thinking about one person. If Marie and I were doing listening partnership, she's talking, I'm thinking about her, and she's thinking about her. I'm not thinking about, what am I doing in my workshop? Does my hair look okay? Oh my gosh, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? No, I'm thinking about everything that she's saying, totally. It sounds simple, but it does take practice. Most of what the listener does is listen, but these are some questions that are possible to ask. No questions out of our own curiosity, no questions of analysis or fixing. The role of the listener is to remember both people's goodness, inherent goodness. Be relaxed, pleased. We don't have to fix. In this particular relationship, we don't have to fix. And probably most importantly is confidentiality. It's not something I need to teach you all about, but I do want to remind us the importance of not bringing up to the person what they talked about in this listening time, and certainly not telling anyone else what was said. This is our commitment to confidentiality. And then the talker. What is the role of the talker? The role of the talker is to be honest. The role of the talker is to say what's on our mind, trust our minds to bring up what is that cluttered piece that wants to be taken care of right now. See if we can notice feelings and stay with them. So, we're going to try this right now, right here. You're going to turn to somebody near you, and what I suggest you do is have a chance to talk about something related to your own life and your own childhood. Anyone that you know listened to you, was really there for you when you were a child. It helps to remember what it was like. And maybe there wasn't anybody. Nobody listened to you. What was that like? Or you can talk about that moment of brain freeze, or a moment of when you just can tell that your brain is so confused and cluttered that you just can't think. What are those moments in your life? Or if you want to talk about what a beautiful day it is, or the rugby game that happened yesterday, you are in charge. No one's telling you. I'm not telling you what you have to talk about. These are simply suggestions. So I will ask you to find a partner. I will time at the end of 3 minutes. I will let you know. I will make noise and I will wave that the time is over. It's time to switch. The person who was the talker becomes the listener. You're going to take turns. This is learning in process. So go ahead and find your partner and begin when you are ready. you. So it's time to switch. The talker now becomes the listener, and the listener becomes the talker. And I can tell by listening, I can tell by watching, who are the talkers and who are the listeners. I can see mouths moving, and I can see mouths that are shut. So go right ahead. Talkers, talk. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. Thank you very much. Congratulations, you've just done something brand new. You're very brave. So what was it like? Be honest, I want to hear it exactly. What was it like? What was it like being the talker?
Both, it was both wonderful.
Both, it was wonderful. I paid her a lot to say that right here in the front. Thank you so much. Thank you. What else was it like?
It was hard.
It was hard. What was hard?
Stay focused on her and on her thoughts and words and not rolling with my mind.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. You must have done a good job if it was wonderful for her. Congratulations.
It was, indeed.
Good. Good. Who else? What was it like being the listener? Yes.
For me, the talker part was harder because I'm just not used to be listening only for 3 minutes without interrupting me. So, really, weird.
Weird for those of you in the back. She said it's hard. She's not used to having someone listen to her for 3 minutes. 3 minutes doesn't sound very long until you're doing it. 3 minutes can be huge. Yes, yes. We're not used to not being interrupted. Good. What else was it like? These are brilliant. These are brilliant. What else? Yeah, anyone else? All of your answers are correct. And you can say it in Slovenian. You can say it in whatever language you want. It's most important that you hear each other. These are what I hear. Yesterday when I did this with the students, someone said it was horrible. It was awkward. I think that especially those of us in my training, I'm trained to listen and fix, right? I'm not trained to listen, forget that. I'm trained to fix. I'm trained to give orders and to fix. So talking is hard, because I'm not supposed to be focused on myself at all. And listening is also very hard. Both were very hard for me. So I think that responding honestly is good. This is not our usual experience. The good news is it gets easier. So this is our model. That connection is the beginning, listening, respect, warmth, and with the healing of tensions, releasing, crying, laughing, shaking, talking, that we end up with intelligent actions. That's our goal for ourselves and our families and our children. So this listening partnership is not a quick fix. It takes time. It took a while for us to get like we are. It took a while for children to get the way they are. It does happen more quickly with babies and young children and toddlers, school-age children than it does with us, but it does happen in our lives. Our lives do change. This is a tool like a sewing machine or a pair of skis or a screwdriver. They work to the extent we use them. I'm getting better at this the more I do it. I'm still not very good at skiing, but I'm better at it the more I do it. We can use this for many things, to talk about our goals, to sort through challenging situations. It's a useful tool in many regards. So I bring us back to our parenting model and parenting by connection, which is moderate limits and a lot of warmth. These are the listening tools, and what we have talked about so far is a focus on the listening partnership, because in my mind, we can do the rest of the tools, the adult to child, by decision. We do a lot as parents by decision, but it's much more creative, it's much easier, it takes less toll on us if we are not doing everything by decision, sort of white knuckle and gritted teeth. But decision is good. We're now going to focus a little on stay listening, the basics of stay listening. And that is the tool that we use that parents can activate to just help children heal from the bumps and bruises of what childhood brings. That natural healing process begins and we stay and listen. We can all remember, hopefully someone, for me it was one incident in my childhood. I remember my grandmother, my mother's mother, who listened to me one time when I was a small child, about 4. My husband, oh my heaven, no, it wasn't my husband, it was my father. When I was 4, my father was shot in a hunting accident, and I heard I saw my mother receive the phone call, and my mother went away. My mother was completely gone when she got that phone call. And she came to me and she just said, "Your father's been shot, there's nothing to worry about." Go figure. There was nothing about stay listening in my childhood, believe me. My parents were wonderful. They did the best they could. They loved me dearly. They did many things well, and they didn't have this information. So my mother then got off the couch and went into the kitchen. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I have spent, I don't know, several hundred hours in listening time on this incident. So my mind froze, it was horrible. It didn't work. It did not work for me. But my grandmother, some many months later, my grandmother listened to me cry. She held me in a rocker. I still remember it. She held me in a rocker, and she just listened to me cry. She called me Susie Pie Crust, which I found really annoying. But at that moment, her kindness overcame. And I cried, and I cried, and I cried. And she said it was okay. I think she had an idea that things were built up in me. I'd hurt my foot a little bit, that was the pretext. But it meant my relationship with my grandmother, that grandmother, not my other grandmother, was different for the rest of my life and for the rest of her life. I had a sense of connection and closeness to her for many years to come. Another incident that happened in my life as a parent was our oldest son. We had been playing in the basement. We had some toys. We were playing. The toys were all over the floor. And it was time to clean up. And that's what I said. Okay, time to clean up. And I got no in response. He was about 4. No. Really? No? This is what I'm thinking. I said, yes, it's time to clean up. It's time to clean up now. No, I'm not cleaning up. And I just stayed with him. Well, it is time to clean up. You can clean up yourself, or we can do it together. You have a choice. No, I'm not cleaning up. And I resisted the urge to just get impatient and mad and mean and insist and get loud. And I got a little bit playful and said, really? And I sort of joked about it and played with him a little. He laughed, and then I said, it really is time to clean up. We are going to clean up now. And I sort of took his hand, and we started to pick up the toys and put them in the basket, and he said no. And he then burst into tears. We were close together, we were physically close. He started to cry and wail and cry, and he said, eventually, he said, why do you hate me? Why do you hate me? Why have you always hated me? And I had to remember, this is about cleaning up toys. This is not about cleaning up toys. This is about a little boy who was adopted, who was given away by his biologic mother. We never knew his biologic father. This is a little boy who had had big struggles, had a very difficult delivery. He was asphyxiated at birth. I mean, he had a lot of things that happened early to him. Had I been a perfect mother? No. Had I made mistakes? Yes. Had I been impatient? Yes. But did he think I hated him? I don't think so. But it's hard in that moment to remember that I'm okay as a mother, and not want to blame him, not want to criticize him. So I listened to him cry. He cried and he cried and he cried and he cried and he cried, and I said, I'm really sorry this is so hard. I'm sorry it feels this way. It's okay to cry. I love you. I don't want you to be alone with these feelings. And oh, it seemed like hours later, but it was probably 10 or 15 minutes later, he sort of dusted himself off and the crying subsided, and we picked up the toys. It wasn't that hard to do. We picked up the toys. But it took listening time. It took staying and listening to him for it to be easy. The feelings are there. If we can let them out, they go away. They don't build up and cause problems later. This is what I do with families in my palliative care work. When I tell families about a diagnosis like I received with my son, I listen to the child and I listen to the parents. I say very little and I listen to their outset. I come back the next day and I listen to their outset. What is your understanding? And what do you want? What are your goals? What matters? What do you love about your child? Very simple questions, and I let them talk and I let them cry. So, I love this little boy. Isn't he wonderful? This reminds me of what my parenting years. It felt like my parenting years were filled with this. One boy after another having these cries. I do need to say that they turned out okay. The oldest one, who said he hated me, we talk almost every day. We are in very close communication. He's getting a PhD at the University of Michigan in the States in architectural history. The middle one, who is our foster child, is married, has 3 beautiful children, and he's just a semester shy from getting his degree at university. And our youngest is going to be a lawyer. I guess it depends on how you look at it, but anyway, he turned out beautifully. And we are a very, very close and connected family. So in the long term, it all worked. So let's go back to our listening partners, and we're going to take a couple of minutes each. Again, what would it be like to stay and listen to this little boy? What would it be like for you? And to not either distract him or just give in. If he wants a cookie before lunch and he starts crying, just say, oh, here, have a cookie. Rather than just sit and listen for a few moments while he has a chance to cry. What would that be like? So go back to your listening partner. I will time. Whoever talked first the last time should talk second this time. Go ahead and begin. Well done. You are getting to be experts at this. I love watching you. I wish you could see all of your faces. Now we'll switch. The listener becomes the talker. Go right ahead. talker. So how was it this time? How was it taking turns this time? Oh, she knew I saw her hand up in the air. How was it this time? Easier. Someone said easier. Any other responses? How was it? Harder, easier? Interesting. Good. You want to say any more? No, okay. Later. Good. Any other responses? What was it like? I wish I had candy to throw to you. What was it like this time?
It's hard not to ask questions.
It's hard, yeah. Like what kind of questions?
Like, I want to hear something more, but I don't want to lead her in the direction that I want her to go. I want her to finish.
Brilliant, Liam, brilliant. Yes. The questions can lead someone where we want them to go. She said it's hard to do this and not ask questions. The set of questions I gave you is a good set of questions so that we are keeping people going, but not trying to direct them one place or another. The better we get at the listening partnerships, the more we learn about what questions to ask when. But the beginning, the most important thing is to learn how valuable our attention is. And I think someone said how wonderful it was to be listened to without being interrupted. We're not used to that. We're not used to being able to follow our own minds very far. These are some quotations from your colleagues that have been using these materials for their career, for their work, that I wanted you to have and to know. I will send this PowerPoint to Katya, and as she has all of your emails, I will be glad to have you have this PowerPoint for yourself, so you don't need to be taking notes. I do want you to know what the workshop will be doing. The workshop will be doing more listening tools. We will talk about play listening. We will talk more about setting limits, this whole issue of setting limits. How do we set limits in a way that we don't need to yell, we don't need to hit, we don't need to punish, but we can set limits and have children learn from that, heal from that, and regain flexible behavior. And we will have a section and a time on family policies. All families have a policy, whether we are aware of our family policy or whether we aren't. And we will look at family policies and have some chance to think through what policies we may want for our families or ways in which we can work with families to be setting family policies. And we will have a chance to experience a support group. We have experienced the usefulness, the beginning usefulness of listening partnerships, and there is additional usefulness for support group which follows very similar guidelines. I do want to have time for questions, and I'm happy to take questions now. I'm going to pass this microphone out to you. And if you would like to ask questions, you can. If you want to ask me questions in private, that's okay. And I'm quite sure if you are uncertain of asking a question in English, that we have someone who would translate for you. I apologize. Your English is much better than my Slovenian, and I admire your command of language, and I certainly enjoyed it with the students that I had the honor of meeting yesterday. But please, I welcome your questions. I welcome the places that you wonder about, and we will certainly be getting into more of those in the workshop time. But I'm going to give this microphone out. You have to keep it very close to your mouth so I can hear you. and I welcome and request questions.
So, Pamela,
Yes.
first question. It's very interesting what have you told us, but what is the frame? How can we work this hand-to-hand parenting? How can we do that?
How can you learn, did you say? Is this on?
Yes, what is the frame to do that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is this on? Okay, great. The way you can learn is to do the listening partnership that we have learned today, and to practice stay listening with children when they show upset. And we will learn more about play listening, which is another way of listening with children that has to do with play and laughter. And special time, which is about having play time that is child-directed. We listen and follow. And you can certainly learn more by going to the Hand in Hand website. And there are videos and there are books that you can obtain. This is in an hour and a half.
Yeah, I understand, but I was asking about the place. Where is the place to do that? In an institution, in hospital, in schools?
The place is based in California. The website is Hand in Hand Parenting, and you can do a class from online that will have a teacher that you will see on the computer, and you will have a class, and then you will go try things, and you will come back to the class. There are 3-week classes, 8-week classes, and that would be how you would learn.
Maybe I would just like to ask, you said before that mothers stay home a long time in our country. How is it like in America? Do you have a system where, for how long do the mothers stay at home, or what is it like there?
It's very grim there. Mothers can save their vacation time from their work, vacation time, which might be 2 weeks of vacation in their job. Sometimes they can get, and that would be paid, sometimes they can get 6 weeks. 6 weeks, but that will probably be unpaid time. And a lot of this is dependent on who the employer is. It's very, very dependent on your job and what kind of job you have. So
After 2 weeks, they go back to work.
many of them take the 6 weeks without pay, but it's not very human, it's not very family friendly. And we have no universal daycare. It was actually during Nixon's term as president, which is many years ago, before some of you would remember. Nixon campaigned on a campaign promise of universal daycare, like you have your kindergarten, which starts at 2. And the Congress agreed that was very important. The Democrats and the Republicans agreed, and Nixon, because of his advisors, who were very conservative and did not want to destroy families, vetoed that policy, that bill, and we have never been able to do it again. We have Head Start for children that are very poor. Starting at age 3, children can be in Head Start. It's a preschool for them. And we have for children with developmental delay or risk of developmental delay, we have programs that start in the newborn period, but that's a very small number of children qualify for that. So we are way behind where you are. You have a very enlightened policy here. It is not as good in the United States. And there's just recently been research showing how important and useful for long-term benefit is a home visiting program of a nurse after a child is born, where the nurse goes to the home and provides resource to the mother and to the baby. It saves much money later because things happen better for the mother and the baby. But that program is not well funded at all. Not well funded. President Obama has done very, very, very well, but it's still not as funded as would make sense. So we're not so smart in the United States in many areas. Sad but true. Thank you. Good questions. Please, more.
So thank you for your presentation. So I want to know your opinion about punishment. Must be or not? Never? It is necessary or I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I will certainly get into that more in the workshop when we do a whole section on setting limits. Limits are very important. Saying no is very important. Giving children information about what is safe and what is not safe is very important. But I think that can be done without punishment, without humiliation, without causing harm. Punishment is a way of disconnecting. When I punish my son, he feels disconnected from me. I'm harsh, I'm critical, and he feels disconnected. When I set a limit and I get between him and the misbehavior or the irrational behavior, I don't let him do it, but my tone is warm and firm. Firm, yes. Harsh, no. I think we can set limits with children without punishment, and I think the benefits are enormous. Is it easy? No, not easy at all. It's one of those things that can be done based on decision. I can decide I'm never going to hit my child. I had to decide that. I had to decide I will never hit them. Did I sometimes squeeze their arm too tight? Yes. Am I sorry? Yes. Was it the right thing to do and did it work? No. They had to recover from that. I then needed to apologize. I needed to say, I'm sorry. That was not the right thing to do. And keep going. And I do remember one time saying, Mommy, why are you wrong again? And I had to be honest. I've never done this before. I've never been a mother. And much as I was learning about all this and trying to do it my very best, I didn't do it perfectly. But I did my best not to be harsh and not to be critical. I wasn't perfect. Does that answer your question? I think that without the listening partnerships, the decision can only take us so far. The decision not to hit my child was a good one. But without the listening partnership, I squeezed his arm too hard. My tone of voice was sharp and harsh, not warm and firm. The listening partnership helped me have a place for my feelings so that I could be a little bit warmer. Does that help? It's not easy. Thank you. Really good question.
As we talked yesterday, Pam, I think it would be really great to hear how it is where you work, how medicine and therapy works together. Do they work together or not? Because here sometimes it seems like these are two different things. If you're a doctor, you're a doctor, and if you're a therapist, you're a therapist, and I don't know how it is with you, and how people that you work with, how do they respond? Because you told us that you have training, that you train people that you work with in the hospital, how to work with children and families. So if you can say something about it.
Good, thank you. I learned these tools and this way of parenting when I was before I was in medical school and through medical school. And I will say that it has taken me deciding and building people around me who had the same perspective, building a group of supportive people, other parents, another pediatrician. So through the different phases of my career, this is not the way every pediatrician operates. And I, in my work as an outpatient pediatrician, I wrote grants so that we could have people who did do therapy with children. They did play therapy and they did family counseling. So that with our children who had labels, mental health labels, they could receive those services. And that was right in the same building that we had our pediatric office, and we had monies for them to be in another office as well. More and more pediatricians are realizing the importance of working together with a therapist or a counselor, because the top 5 issues in medicine for children in the United States now are all emotional and behavioral. They are not infectious disease. They are not even asthma. They have to do with children's emotional and behavioral health. So, and that's not something pediatricians are trained in. We get a little bit about development, but nobody taught me this in medical school. This was something I learned about and pursued because it made sense to me. It was part of what it made sense about being a human being. In the work that I'm doing now, I have, again, grant funding for a full-time counselor who does nothing but this with parents and with children. She teaches parents to do stay listening. She teaches them to do play listening. She teaches them to do special time. She teaches parents to do listening partnerships. She does a lot of one-way listening. I mean, she uses this tool in her counseling. This is the tool that she uses with families, and she's getting better and better and better at asking what questions, and parents are healing and making good decisions in their lives. I mean, just changing their lives and their children's lives little bit by little bit, which I know you all have experienced as well. So there is a coming realization of the importance and the overlap of therapy and medicine. And in our new Affordable Care Act, the new health care that we have, that is nothing as good as what you have here. It's not even close to what you have here, but we're trying to get better in the United States for for everyone to have health care. We're not there yet. But one of the things that is becoming more and more clear is the triangle of chronic disease in adults and poverty and emotional and behavioral health issues. And when we have these 3 issues, we have huge, huge problems for individuals, for their families, for their communities. And we are learning the importance of providing resource for emotional and behavioral health. We in medicine are learning that. So are we there yet? No, but we are becoming more enlightened that what you do is critical to the physical as well as the emotional and spiritual well-being of people. And it's an awareness that the whole palliative care field does have, that physical, emotional, psychosocial, and spiritual connection is really all about what palliative care does. So there is a much greater awareness there, and it's seeping in. So does that answer that? Thank you. Other questions, please?
Hello, thank you very much for everything till now. I would like to ask you how to listen to my daughter at the moment when she stops to talk, to cry, to shout, to disagree, to do anything. She's just quiet. What to do, how to listen to her. Thank you.
Well, I think the best we can do is to stay and to have that beautiful expression you have on your face right now. I mean, you look pleased, you look loving, you look relaxed, and to let her know that you'd like to be with her, that you don't want her to be alone with these feelings, and that it's okay to show them, and you're confident about her goodness and how smart she is, and that she can heal. And mostly you don't have to stay very much except to stay close with her. Don't let her hurt herself. Don't let her hurt you or, put a hole in the wall. But to just stay close and also to be honest. When you can't listen anymore, when you feel too upset to listen, to let her know that. I wish I could stay. It's not you. You're doing fine. I can't do this anymore. And I will be back. The good news is they will give you many chances. They will come back again and again and again. And it's okay to say, I can't do it anymore. But we will come back to this. Sure. I want to give credit to my dear, sweet husband of now 35 years. I was a young feminist, and I had no interest in ever marrying any man. It didn't look like a very good life for women when I was growing up. This was in the late 60s and 70s in the United States. And I had made that decision. I was going to have a good life. And I met a man who taught me about this. He taught me listening partnerships. He listened to me. He tried to tell me about it, and I said, you might need to tell sad stories about your life, but I don't. I'd rather go live my life. Let's go skiing. But he listened to me. When he saw feelings that were there and I was upset, he sat and he stayed and listened to me. And then he explained to me, well, that's what I was talking about. That's a listening partnership. And I will say, I had to, because I could tell something had changed in my mind. I could tell there was a little shift. And I won't say that I liked it, but I will say I had to admit. And it was later, it wasn't right away, it was later. He mentioned that. And so that happened again. And I realized that this worked. It was like he had given me a screwdriver and I needed to unloosen some screws in my brain. And it was a tool that worked for me as a human being. And no, he wasn't a therapist, he wasn't a minister, he was an engineer. I mean, he still is an engineer. He's a civil engineer. So this is a tool that I know has saved our marriage. I'm happier with him now than I was 35 years ago. And he's not perfect, believe you me. Don't go there. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. And I think that we, at least in the United based on what I've learned from spending time with Stash and Jans yesterday, that men in this country, like in our country, aren't supposed to do this, aren't supposed to be warm and soft and talk about what things feel like. That's just not okay. There's a lot of humiliation that goes with doing that. And that's part of what we get to undo, so that men can be teaching boys to do this in ways that is safe and that works for them. So it was my husband that taught me, and he said one time, if it weren't for this tool, that he's afraid he would be in jail and I would be dead. Or no, he'd be dead and I'd be in jail. Sorry. I would have just crowned him. But he was able to listen to me when I felt the most upset. And it didn't really have anything to do with him. But he could listen, I could have my mind clear, and we actually have never been happier together. More questions. Somebody needs to, I'm away from my timer. Are we okay for time? Okay. I wanted to leave time for questions. These are important. You in the back could ask questions. Anyone? Yes? Good.
What about two adults talking like we do, and one person, when he listens, this person, he feels another. But when another person talking, and the other listen but don't feel the person, what to do then?
Okay, so let me be sure I have your question correct. What do we do when the person who's talking doesn't have feelings? They're just talking?
No,
No.
the listener.
The listener.
The listener don't feel the talking.
The listener doesn't have any feelings about what the person is talking about? What do? That's okay. That's okay. If you and I were taking turns listening, and you're talking, and I'm listening, what I'm doing is thinking about you. I'm thinking about what you're saying, how you're saying it, what do I know, I'm learning about you, I'm paying attention to you, I'm pleased with you, I show you warmth and respect. That's my job as the listener. I may or may not feel happy or sad or upset with what you're saying. My goal is to respect you and encourage you to talk, to laugh, to cry. Did I understand your question?
What about in the family? When one person, the child is crying, and dad or mother don't listen to his feelings. They said just stop crying. What about then? How to say the parents that they listen their child?
Very, very good question. I think one of the first things to do is ask the parent, ask them one at a time, what was it like for you when you were little and you cried? What was it like for you? What happened? Let them talk about that. My mother did, my father did. Let them talk about what it was like. We all learned not to cry, that it was bad, it was wrong, it was bad. And things were done to us, and those were hurts for us. So the first thing is for the parents to talk about what it was like for them. And they will hear themselves say how awful it was when someone hit them, or when someone yelled at them and told them to stop crying. They will realize that it was painful for them, it was hard. And So I think listening to them will give you a picture of what it was like for them. And then to ask the next question, what would you have liked someone to do? Or maybe they remember when one person listened to them. Or what was it like that no one listened? And then to ask them, what would it be, what does it feel like when your child is crying? What is it like for you? What do you feel like doing? And let them talk about it. Ooh, I want to I want to hit him, I want to yell, and it's not okay, it's bad, put him in the corner, you know. Let them get that out so that those feelings can be healed, they can hear what they're saying, and then with enough time, they can think about what they might rather do. And I also think it's important to give them the information that connection, warmth, and warm, firm, realistic limits results in better outcomes later. That